Hello, everyone. Welcome to Emerge and Empower with your host, Dr. Lynn J. Emerge and Empower, as you know, is about stories of individuals who have emerged from life altering situations, difficulties growing up, whether it's health, whether it's loss, grief. Everyone's past trauma is different, but they come on the podcast to share and hope that it can bring hope to the hopeless, and those who are broken, they can start putting those pieces back together. On today, we have a special guest by the name of Brigitte, and she'll be coming on to share her testimony and also her why as to why she got into the work that she's done to continue helping individuals to know that yes, there is life after trauma and we can do it together. Thanks for watching. So, what you need to do right now is go ahead and start sharing and say, "Hey everyone, Dr. Lynn J is on." How are you sharing? You're sharing by putting it in your groups, calling people on, liking and subscribing to Dr. Lynn J at Emergent and Power on YouTube. Go ahead and share. This is your moment to do so.
Something good gonna happen in this year, and I am grateful that I made it here. Yesterday's gone, and a new day has appeared, and I am grateful that I made it here. Blessings gonna find me here, oh yeah. Favor gonna find me here, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, say money gonna find me, blessings gonna find me, oh na 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 na. Something good gonna happen.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Emerge and Empower with your host, Dr. Lynn J. Into the set, welcome to Emerge and Empower, where we love the individuals that come on and share their life altering testimonies that truly we find many of our viewers find them relatable. Bridget, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience on today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brigitte Cutshall, and I live in the metro Atlanta area. My background is in publishing, and I had my own company called Gemini Media. But I also became a health advocate because I want people to understand that we're all different, and you'll find a different solution if you're having any kind of issue, mental or physical health issues, and they're all really connected. But I here to always bring positivity and hope to people. I think that's important.
Oh, thank you so much, Bridget. And we'll dive a little bit more into your publishing and the work that you're doing because we believe you're still in the field of having people come on to be able to write their stories, to be able to
Yes.
share their stories, just like on this podcast where you're putting a voice and a face, but at the same time, when people write their books, it's another way also to reach individuals and share their story even on a broader scale, and I'm thanking you for the work that you're doing. So we're going to get into your why later on. And so let's just get right into it. Can you share a bit of your childhood with us and how it was like for you growing up?
I'm one of those military, I call military brats. I grew up in a military family, moved around a lot, but I was born in the mid 60s. So I never saw my father because he was in Vietnam. And I was born right before that happened. And I always felt, I should say neglected, but I never saw my dad and I didn't understand that. And thankfully I had an older brother. And my dad didn't feel guilty, I guess, and he gave me a dog. And I think I became a dog lover because the dog was I was probably 3 or 4, but I remember
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And my mother is French, from France. So he was an American soldier. He met her, I think, obviously before Vietnam War. And so that was hard. You had this woman who couldn't speak, English very good in the beginning. My grandmother taught her to speak English. And so I didn't realize at the time, my mom had to work her butt off, you know what I'm saying? Because she had 2 kids at the time. She said worked
Right.
her butt off, but you know what I'm saying? And it was really hard to be a woman back in the 60s and 70s, and
Yeah.
so I think I fell in love with dogs, but I still felt neglected, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because back then, we were, my brother and I were just left alone because my mom had to work and my dad was wherever,
Mhm.
and we moved around a lot, okay? So that's kinda hard for a military brats or military children, and so you're trying to make connections, and I think the positive thing for that is my father got us a dog, mostly for me,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so, like I said, then they got divorced. My mom was divorced, um, I think I was around 5, you know, I don't know exactly how
Oh,
old.
so it happened at a very young age for you.
Yeah, I don't get it, and so my brother, he thank God, he protected me,
Mhm.
and he knew I needed, because I was just a 5-year-old little girl, and then she got, remarried when I was 7 or 8, I don't know, 6, I can't remember, it's all a blur,
Right. Right.
but she married another American soldier, so she likes, I guess, just she felt the support.
Soldiers.
She likes soldiers, and so this, soldier was in Vietnam too, but this is they got married after the war, and he was injured. He was got a Purple Heart. He was really kind to me because he knew I was just really creative, and that's just how I was and ran around wild, probably because it's my brother's fault. So I I wanted to be just like him. Of course, he's a lot
Right.
bigger.
Okay.
That's what it was. I didn't have any role models, or a male role model, if you think about it, other than my
Mhm.
brother. And then my mom's second marriage lasted about 10 years. They got divorced, when I was in high school, and, so that was you know, I should say that was traumatic because it was kind of embarrassing in a way, 'cause the
Mhm.
area that we lived in, it was small, everybody knows your business, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And, it was just, I don't know, that was hard on me and my brother. My brother was, I think, just was in college at the time, but I was in, like, 16 years old, and
Mhm.
we had to, like, choose. It was just crazy, and that second marriage, they had a my younger sister, and so I was her role model, really.
I
So
see.
I'm the middle child,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I was the calm one. Most middle children are crazy, right? They see, you know what I'm saying? But I was calm because my brother helped me, and then I knew my sister needed help, and so I was like, she still says to this day, I was like her second mother, even though she, Lord, you know, maybe she had temper tantrums because, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. I was only 8
Let's
years old
see.
when her. Right? So I was, and I really, appreciate having that experience, but I was
Mhm.
thankfully very creative to solve solutions. That's just something ingrained in me.
Right.
And the second divorce, like I said, was more traumatic than the first because I knew what was going on.
Right.
This
Mhm.
and it was just, I don't know why I was embarrassed about it, but people were kind of bullying me because of this. And
Because
that's,
of that.
yeah, and I can't help it. It's not, I'm not the one that, and my mother, they would make fun of my mom because she had an accent. She still does, but that's
Mhm.
just the way it is. And so I learned, um, back then, I don't know, I gotta have more empathy. And also I didn't mention, that's when desegregation happened.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
I grew up when this was going on in Columbus, Georgia. So then they, um, put me on the other schools. They mixed all the schools up.
Mhm.
And I had some of my best friends were the black students. Is that okay? Because
Mhm.
they understood. That's why we connected because
Mhm.
they understood they saw some of the bullying that people were saying to me.
Right.
And like, I just, you know, that's, don't make fun of a kid if their parents gets divorced
It's
or
true.
lots of rumors. And so then I had to decide then, my senior year in high school, where I was gonna live because
Mhm.
that's where I think, um, my mom moved out of town to a different, she worked for the government. She got moved to a different city,
Okay.
and I'm like, "I can't go. I can't." I wanted to be with my friends that I became close with, to graduate high school with them.
Right.
So
Usually that's what happens. Mhm.
they had a court case. Oh, it was very, 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 very public, and,
Wow.
it it's not, and so I told the judge that I wanted to stay in with my dad and my adopted father or whatever, because I wanted to graduate high school with my
Mm-hmm.
friends and be there for them,
Right.
with them. And I just the thought, you don't know what would happen to me if I was in another city and I didn't have my support system,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and or my brother. That was another thing. And then my sister, so they decided to let me stay with our dad and her real, her father,
Right.
and that
So
was good.
how is your mom feeling? She's feeling like you choosing him
Yeah,
instead
I
of
think
her?
she did. I think she did. And it was hard on her. But then later I learned, after she was gone and I was the one that was trying to graduate, I was an athlete too. So that was a lot of, I was good in school and sports and blah, 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 blah. And I had all this pressure on me and trying to take care of my little sister. And it turned out the father that raised me, that adopted me, he had some PTSD from Vietnam.
Mm.
And I
But you
learned
didn't
later,
know that as a child. You
because
didn't
he was
witness
doing
it.
it towards my mother, not me, right? And I didn't, so then he's taking it out on me. I won't even, yeah. So, and I joke now that I never got asked out on dates, partly because my brother was my protector. And they
Mm-hmm.
knew who my older brother was. I mean,
Right.
he was a good person, but don't mess with him. And then
Right.
my
Right.
father that raised me, um, he was like a retired military, but a football coach. And so people don't want to mess with him. And just an example, I did have one or two dates, and they'd come over and he would be like cleaning a gun in front of them, when just stuff like that. And right, that's not good.
Wow.
So these boys, they knew, don't ask Bridget out. And so that was kind of like, what what's wrong with, so you're feeling self-doubt, feeling like a piece of, what. And
Right.
then my I think 3 months before I graduated high school, or actually the last 6 months, he said I had to get a job. Right, that day,
Mm-hmm.
you got to get a job. I'm like, I don't have a car. He was just a teacher. You didn't make much money to
Right.
have another. So I got a job, and then I had one of the coworkers pick me up, and there was a guy that would, and so he just lost it over that. I'm like, you said I
Wow.
have to get a job, or I can't use your car. How am I going to get to work? And this guy was nice to me,
Mm-hmm.
and then he kept saying, what did he say? He kept saying I effed up all the time. Every time he said I'm my effer, effer.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I got home and he said it to me, and I told him to F off. I couldn't help it.
Right.
I never used that word ever out of my mouth.
Right.
And then he kicked
It
me
was
out of the house.
building. It was all the frustrations. Your mom is
Yes,
gone. Now you're realizing what she was going through. So
right.
you're feeling, now you're understanding
Yes,
everything about it. And now he doesn't see your mom, he sees you. So now he's treating you as he would, you're your mother's child.
yes.
You're this,
Because
you
I
can
was
imagine.
helping my younger sister, and
Hmm.
I do look like my mother. We had the actual same birthday. Isn't that funny?
Wow.
I'm
So
the
there are
best,
so many similarities.
and I'm the best birthday present she ever had. That's what I always tell them.
Hmm.
But you have to buy. But he kicked. What he did to make it very dramatic,
Hmm.
when he kicked me out of the house. My sister remembers that day. She said he kicked me down the stairs. I don't remember that. I don't remember. She was 8 or 9 years old. She maybe nine
Uh-huh.
or 10. That was traumatic for her to see her dad treating her sister like that, who took care of
Right.
her,
Hmm.
kicked me, threw me, and I don't see. I totally erased that.
Physically
And
kick, you mean?
physically kicked me after I
Wow.
told him to go f off. But
Hmm.
so then I went to bed, went to school like the next morning, like nothing, everything was just fine. That's kind of how I
Hmm.
was. I always suppressed it. And then
Right.
in my, I can't remember which class it was, like one of my science classes, um, the vice principal came to come get me and said, you're getting checked out by your father. And I'm like, what? And so I went and left. And then he brought me home, and all my
Mm.
stuff was in the front yard, and he kicked me out. He said, good luck. This is
Wow.
3 months before
And you're
and I'm like,
16? You were
I was
16, you
17
said?
at the time, at that point, and that was mortifying. And then I'm like, what do I do? I didn't cell phones didn't exist in
Right.
83, or no, yeah, it was 83. And they didn't exist, and I don't remember who I called. And I did probably call my mother, but she was at work. I called, some of my friends, and then one of my good friends, his father, some of these parents didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to help me
Right. Out
because
of fear.
out of fear. And it was, so one of my good friends, her father came over, and his name was Carl, by the way. And I would just remember that he came with his pickup truck. He was really not. He put all the stuff in the truck, and I heard him inside arguing with my father, the one
Mm-hmm.
that raised me. I remember. I just remember the yelling, and then they took me and they kept me stay at their house for 3 months so I could graduate high
So you could
school.
graduate. That was
And then
wonderful of them.
that was traumatic though, because I had opportunities to a cross country scholarship at Georgia Tech and go to UGA. I would it just trauma what that I just like I had to get out of the state. I had to go. Bye. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
then that's when I moved in with my mom and her. I didn't mention her other husband happened to be they got married I think that's another reason why my second dad was so mean to me, is because my mom
Mm-hmm.
had got remarried around that time frame. And this guy,
Ah.
this is her third husband. I was like, ooh, I didn't like, because I'm like,
He
oh,
was
another one.
military too?
Yes, he's a
Oh,
West Pointer.
wow.
He's
She
from
must
West
like
Point.
the guys in uniform.
She does. And he's special forces. His guy was tough, but he was so tough, but he knew. He was super nice to me, but we laugh about it now, but I had, you're 17, you got an attitude anyway. I'm like, great,
Right.
another year. And that's kind of how it was. And girls, I didn't know how to, I don't know. I wasn't talking rude to him, but I was, facial expressions.
Right.
But
Right.
after I graduated high school, all three of my mom's husbands showed up at my high school graduation.
Oh, wow.
I was embarrassed. I mean, I shouldn't be,
Well,
but
actually, it shows you have a support system for people to even
all
care to
these
come because
men
of,
want to help because and another reason I didn't do the Georgia Tech thing is at the time in the early 80s, there was a lot of rapes going on. And
right.
so I think I was told that. And so I just knew instinctively
Mm-hmm.
it was new. They were trying to that's after Title IX. They're having more female
Right.
athletes. And my gut says, don't do it. And I'm glad I didn't, because weird stuff happens in that area. Um,
Right.
anyway, so all three of those guys showed up around, and I was just like, everybody else on my friends had one man and, their mom and dad, and I had my mom
Right.
and three men and my brother. And I was just like,
Did they all sit together?
they were, well, not, they weren't close, but
Okay. Okay.
I could just tell the one that was going to kick everybody's ass, was my mom's newest husband. He was the one that, the newest husband, the
Mm-hmm.
Special Forces West Pointer.
So everyone was afraid of him.
Yes, but he's the one he's the one that took me after I graduated, and I got to go have fun at my graduation with my friends, for the weekend. And then
Mm-hmm.
I moved in because I had nowhere to go, and so he let me move in with him and my mom. And
Right.
he bought me my first car, and it was a stick shift. I did not know how to drive a stick shift. He says, you need to learn how to, but he made me tougher, even,
Right.
in a good way. But he said, you never know. You've got to drive a stick shift first. So he bought this car. It was a, piece of garbage, whatever. But I took it. I didn't have anything. And he taught me how to drive a stick shift. And then I moved in with them. And then I got a part-time job because I knew I had to help pay for stuff. And you're like, anyway, so that was hard moving to a different state, moving in with my
Let's
mom.
go back to the
Yeah. Sorry.
stick. So let's start with where you stopped off with getting a stick shift car.
Yes, I had to get a stick shift, and so he taught me how I knew how to drive a regular automatic, but stick shift is different. And he knew that my mom's third husband, the one that is the father figure I needed. Okay. I
Okay.
needed
Great.
one.
Great.
He was calm about it and taught me, didn't yell and scream at me if I messed up,
That's
where the
good.
other father always yelled and screamed at me, which made me scared. But he gave me more confidence. But he
So you
said,
don't recall your biological father at all growing up?
I didn't see, he wasn't allowed to because of the divorce my mom and him had. I didn't know that,
Mm,
but he showed up at my graduation, which meant a lot to me. I did see him more after
mhm,
that,
mhm.
He also helped me too later. I'll tell you that later. He helped me.
Okay, okay.
He did
I
help
just
me.
wanted to because I remember you said you was about 4 or 5 years old
Right. I
when
did
that
see him
happened.
occasionally. After the divorce, there was some kind of legal thing I didn't know about. He wasn't allowed to see me. And I think
Okay,
part of it
okay.
was I learned that he had cheated on my mother, and that's why she got a divorce. I didn't know when you're foreign, you don't know that stuff.
Right. Parents don't get into the details with children, especially that
And
young.
so I never saw him. And it was hard on my brother too, because he was older and he
Right.
knew my father more.
Okay,
But
okay, okay.
this her
So
third
now you
husband,
have the third father who was the father you always wanted.
I needed someone who was gonna he was calm and taught me stuff
Hmm.
and not making me feel like, like this, like tiny. But he
Right.
knew I had potential. And he also, when I first threw in with them, when I was going to start college, I stayed with them. It was a local thing to start off with.
Okay.
He was giving me um I was mortified. Sex education talk. I was like, what? Because he was worried about being, he just knew.
Right, because you're 17 going on 18 now.
Right. I just turned 18 and I'm like, but think about it now. At the time, but he was like giving me, looking for red flags. And he was just telling me how
Hmm.
he knew how guys operated. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right,
So
right.
he was going to protect me too. And again, he helped me figure out, looking for red flags. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
I was like, I cannot believe he just did, but then I appreciate that.
Hmm.
I've always avoided, I've just been really lucky because I've had in the background all these men, my
Right.
protectors. And the one thing I got a job on base, by the way, and I was working at the part time and then going to school part time. It was kind of hard to figure all that out. But I call him my stepfather. He actually was paying for my school tuition the first year.
Okay.
And so then I knew I had to help pay for the gas for my car. And I wasn't
Hmm.
paying for rent at the time and help pay for insurance, blah, blah, blah. So then I got a job on base. Long story short, I got invited to a party and you got to go with the coworkers. And some of the
Okay.
people there were civilians like me and some military people. And this is how I met my future husband. And he was in the 82nd Airborne too, like my stepfather. But I was invited to this party, and then some guy was hitting on me. I don't drink. I wasn't drinking. This guy was hitting on me, and this other big tall guy showed up, and he could tell I was uncomfortable, and which happened to be my future husband who came to save me. But he
Hmm.
put his arm he told this guy to leave me alone. He goes, "This is my wife." And then he picked me up and put me on the counter in the kitchen at this where this party was. And so the other guy left. Then he was really nice. He goes, "It's gonna be okay." I'm like, "Thank you." Then I'm like, "I gotta get the hell out of here," because I didn't know who this guy was, right? And then later, one of my friends told me that it was a good person, and I saw him at another, and he was just really kind. His name was Carl, by the way. That's why I mentioned that.
Wow.
My friends, another Carl came to save me.
Wow.
And not making it all shiny and positive, but then we went out a few times, and then he learned who my stepfather was, and then we joked, like, my stepfather is one of the commanders in the 82nd Airborne. I'm like,
Wow.
but he liked Carl. So it kind of
Okay.
worked out. But then towards the end of that second year in college, my mom and stepfather got restationed at another, you're in the military. And I'm
Right.
like, I can't, what am I going to do? I'm a college student, right? And they were moving to California, and my boyfriend was getting out of the military. His time was up. He didn't want to renew, and he was moving back to a different. His state was Wisconsin. That's when my real father, my biological dad, got involved, and I didn't know where to go, where to stay. And I lived with my real dad came to drive up to get me from North Carolina and to go stay with him for a while to live because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the money. I'm still, and I didn't want to be a burden on it. I didn't want to be a burden. I felt like I was a burden on people. But
Okay.
thank God, I my my real dad got involved, so I got to stay with him. And then, by the way, I didn't mention that car that my stepfather bought me. What Capuzzo? It was because I got into a
Which
car accident.
which
My
stepfather? The second one or the third one?
the the third one, the one that bought me
Okay.
that car, I got in a
Okay.
car accident.
Wow.
So I mean, it was just stuff happens.
Right.
So my real dad, when I moved back to him, when I went back to Georgia, he had a place for me to stay. He was just kind to me too. He felt guilty, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
should say guilty, but he was just nice and he helped me get my second car. And I don't remember what it was. It wasn't, I'm sure it was some kind of Toyota. I don't remember the actual
Uh-huh.
model. But that allowed me, he knew I needed, we live in an area now, as you probably do. You got to have cars to get anywhere. So I had
Right.
to have a car to drive to a job. So I got a
Mm-hmm.
job, a local job. And then I got eventually an apartment with my brother. And then we helped each other again. And then this guy, Carl, wanted me to, who called me, the one that moved back to Wisconsin, the one that
Uh-huh.
we dated. Um, he wanted me to meet his parents and he told me he missed me. He said, and then he later he proposed to me. And
Wow.
so then I decided to move to Wisconsin, which is, my mom thought it was crazy, right? But I've been with this man for, gosh, I met him when I was 19. So I've been with him, gosh, over, 40 years. I'm
Wow.
59
So was
now.
Carl your first boyfriend too?
No, it was like my second boyfriend.
Okay.
I had one in high school that doesn't really count because I sort of had one in high school, but all these guys are afraid of me. But I did
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
date one guy. I had a lot of
I
guys
see.
ask me out. I went on dates, but
Right.
they were just kind of, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just
Right.
something about them didn't vibe with me. And
Right.
then they
Right.
knew, who my stepfather, the third one, the special forces
Right.
dude, don't met, but he was still kind. So I had all these men. I just don't, they just helped me out. And
Right.
but then I said, okay, yes, to be engaged. And then I lived with my fiance at his parents' house in the
Wow. How
basement
did that happen?
because he was still trying to make enough money to get rent, and I had to get a job first. I had to
I
make some
see.
money, and then it took a while to transfer to go finish college because you're back then. A lot of the courses you take aren't transferable towards another
Right.
degree. It's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
another state. So, and then I lucked out. I've always been fascinated with books. I've always been and I finally I had multiple jobs. I had to work at a retail store. You had to do what you had to do to make some money.
Right.
As
Right.
and then I got a job at a big book printer, which used to be part of they did all the stuff for these big publishers in New York. I didn't know that at the time. And
Right.
so I kind of was back then, it was like a paid internship.
Okay.
And they knew I was good, with writing, and they just knew all that. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
they tried me out in different departments. And then I had to have the requirement was them to pay for my tuition. I had to have a 3.5 GPA. I'm like, that's not a
Mm-hmm.
problem. But then in the beginning, though, I was a little offended to them because I had a Southern accent. So they thought I was stupid.
Oh wow.
Like, I mean, so it's everywhere. If you have a different accent, they think you're. I didn't know
Yeah,
I
it's
had an
true.
accent.
It's true. You're not
My
smart.
mom, right? My mom taught me English from French, so I said words weird sometimes
So
because
do you speak any French? Parlez-vous français?
je ne peux pas français. Just
Ah, épée.
just a little bit because I'm not around my mother. But when I'm
Yes.
with her and my family in France, it comes back to me.
Right. Okay.
But even I just was always stood up for myself, and I think I'm more um more courage because of all those men I was around. Even though I had my friends were girls, but I had all these men who taught me to stand up for myself and still have fun, right? And I think that I'm just so grateful for that. And I think that's why I got into sports because of my brother. Because who else did I have around me? My mom had to work. She was working two jobs at one point, right? I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand that. And so my brother got me into all that. And that's when they learned. Bridget was I was into dancing and I was going to be a professional dancer, but then I was told, you have all these ideas when you're young.
Right, right.
You're too short. I'm 5'3" now. Back then, you got to be taller. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to be a stewardess because my best friend, whose dad, whose name was Carl, her sister was a stewardess. And then
Okay.
she tried, and Delta said she's shorter. She's below 5'7". I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And that's when I decided to pursue what I like doing, and that is I got into the book business, and that's kind of how it was. And I worked hard, got good grades that paid for my school, and then when I graduated college for my degree, that's when a lot of consolidation was going on.
Right,
Publishers were not printing their own stuff anymore.
right. A lot of things
Printers were
changed.
Yeah, printers were consolidating. And then that's when they asked me, they were opening up a new office, I think it was either going to be Denver or Atlanta. I said, I prefer Denver. And they decided not to go that route. They went with Atlanta. And I was like, I'm okay with that. And then
They went the opposite.
whatever. And so that's why I never left the Atlanta. But my husband and I got married, by the way, in middle of all that stuff. And the my brother gave me away, by the way, at the wedding. I didn't mention
Wow.
because who do I choose? I chose my
Right.
brother. Like
That made sense.
I had my brother give me away, and it's kind of cool, and it meant a lot to him too. But so then I got married, and then I graduated. I got married while I was a college student because
Right.
it was a sin. I like, what do I do? And I had to be married. I had to. You can't. I didn't know anybody in
Plus, you was
Wisconsin.
living with him.
Yeah, in his parents' basement. So we got up.
Yes.
So I got married. And then what was really good, I was raised around the Catholic Church. I got married in a Catholic church because my mom is from France, right?
Hmm.
I think that helped our marriage is we had marriage counseling with a couple that had been married for a really long time, and they gave us some really good advice. And
That's great.
I think that helped. And I have people that I know who multiple marriages, divorces, but that's because I found someone so opposite of me. I think that helps a lot.
Okay.
I should say opposite of me, but we complement
When
each
you're
other.
an introvert and he's an extrovert, or
But,
which is
but we
who's who?
implement we kind of help each other.
Compliment.
Yeah, we complement each other. Sorry, because I always say yin and yang, but he
Hmm.
knew always how I was, and he liked it. And he told me when I knew this was the right man, he told me when he asked me to marry him, he
Hmm.
said I was the only person he ever wanted to take care of besides himself. I'm
Wow.
like, that meant a lot. And
Yes.
he was I probably would not have dated him if I knew him prior to the military because he was wild. Right. His One thing we have in common, his parents got divorced. It was ugly when he was 15.
Wow.
So
Which is about the same age as you.
we saw some ugly stuff. And his father left his mother. His father was cheating on him, and he was so angry
Right.
at his father. And long story short, he went into the military. That actually helped him calm him down. And then he met me coincidentally a couple years later at a
So your
random
mom went for the military guys, the guys in uniform, and you two went for the guy in
right.
uniform.
But when I married him, he was a civilian. If that makes sense,
Okay. Okay.
he was a civilian because I I just didn't want to be involved. I didn't want to raise a family around that because how it affected me and my brother. It
Right.
affected us. Some people love it, but at the pros and cons, I just saw what it did to my mother.
Right.
Okay. And that's I think that's how my husband and I connected because we both dealt with divorces. He only had to deal with one. I had to deal with multiple, but
Right.
he was the second child, and his older brother has mental issues. So I got
I see.
involved with that, and his brother. I was offended when I first met his brother. He didn't know any better because when I
Right.
first met him, he goes,
Hmm.
"You're not his girlfriend." And I thought, is he cheating on me? I didn't know his brother had his mom explained it to me but his parents were in denial too about
Okay.
his. he ended up being I forgot, they don't have a label for it, but poor contact with reality.
I
But
see.
I got involved later after we got married, and
Mm-hmm.
being around his brother, his parents thought, hey, he just needs to go get a job. He just can't process reality, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I've helped in that. So I'm just deep down I recognize things in people and I try to bring out the best. And
The
I was
best.
saved by my mom's third husband. I was saved by him. He was the role model that I needed for as a father.
Mm-hmm,
And then
mm-hmm.
my brother passed me on to my husband. I joke about that as, as the as the caretaker. But I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
all have some, we all have wild moments. But I was always so I should say boring. I wasn't the partier. You know what I'm saying? I think that's
Right. You
my
stuck to
husband.
yourself, basically.
I stuck to myself, and that's another thing my brother put into my mind. He says, "Do not ever be working at a restaurant," because he saw how. I'm glad back then working at a bar. You just don't know, especially near a military town
Right, right.
when it's very dang. I'm just grateful that I had these. Looking back, holy cow, had this protection mob around me, and I didn't.
Yes.
And these men would give me good advice. Like my brother, don't work at a bar, and then my stepfather, the one that my role model, was telling me to
Uh-huh.
be careful of what to look for around when men are asking you out.
Right. He taught you what to look for and yeah.
And then if they wanted like sex stuff, and I was just like, oh, this is just mortifying. But that's something I learned in high school already, in sex ed class. But
Right.
I wasn't expecting that. But they were wanting me to, you know, preparing me for life, being an adult. I didn't, a lot of people that I've known got pregnant their first year in college. I did, what I'm saying? I was really careful who I hung around with.
Right.
And my husband was a partier before he knew me, but right,
Okay.
and I was that's another reason why I met. We complement each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm always I have fun, but I don't drink. I just never liked it.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's
Mm-hmm.
the same way. We both don't like to drink.
Right.
Something about just doesn't taste good, or I don't feel good.
Right. Wow. So you had your family support through each of these. So you went through it three times. Most of the time, it only takes one divorce where it severely impacts a child, right?
Mhm.
You had to go through three of these, all under the age of 18 years old. So all
All
of
three marriages,
these,
right? Only yeah. She was
yeah.
divorced twice, but married three
Oh,
times.
okay, okay. So she
Yeah.
was not married to your father.
She was married to him. She got married to my dad in France,
Mm-hmm.
my real father.
Okay,
She
okay,
was
okay,
married to
okay,
him, but they divorced while he was in Vietnam, but she found out he was cheating on her. And so
okay,
when he
okay,
got back from Vietnam, I don't understand what the details, but they divorced when I was like 4.
okay,
And
okay.
and
So you went through three different separations, three different men that came into your life.
yes. And then my brother dealt with it too, but I don't know how he doesn't talk about it. He's a guy.
I see.
But he knew he was like my bodyguard,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
he knew he made the right decision based on our family experience. He wasn't going to go in the military, how it
Mm-hmm.
affected us. And that's why I did not want to marry a guy in the military. And I waited
Right.
till my husband, well, he proposed to me after he got out of the military because he
Right.
knew I wasn't going to marry someone in the
So
military.
basically, you did not want to repeat the cycle.
No, what my mom went through. And
Right.
I'm not saying I mean, it's easier not being married to somebody not in the military. It just makes it even tougher because that person is sacrificing a lot,
Right.
protecting the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I see it. I see them as heroes as well. I do. I
Mm-hmm.
don't berate them, but I just a lot of we're talking about it now, like the Vietnam veterans. A lot of them do have PTSD,
Yes.
and the second one that raised me, um, he was fine until he and my mother got divorced. But
Right.
think about the getting shot. in the leg and not losing your leg or not losing your genitals. It was that close. And
Wow.
he had the right Purple Heart, and he was able to have one biological child, which was my sister
Right.
that I helped. I try not to. I don't focus on the negative, but I think my brother's humor, whereas we did so many pranks. That's just how we that's how we survived. I mean, we were left. We were back then in the 70s. Parents just left you at home,
Right.
right? And so
70s and 80s.
right. And so I learned a lot from that. But again, he knew, just thankful my brother was always there for me. You know, don't mess with my little sister kind of thing. And
Right. So your
not
brother was always there for you as a protector. He was always there as a guide to watch over. So
yes,
that way when the shift happened between first of all your biological father, then the second, so he was still being there for you. So he kind of was like, let's say, like a wedge in the middle to make
yes,
sure you transitioned, through all of
yes,
these. Yes, all of these are happening, but I'm here. I will continue to be here for you. So you had him as a shoulder. You knew that you
yes,
could rely on him.
right. And that's why I had him give me away at my wedding, right? As
Yes.
because I didn't know, I had three of my mom's husbands that she had to marry. I mean, who do I choose, right? And
Right.
my brother was the one that was there consistently. And he's, like I said, I joke that I survived the pranks he did on me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But he didn't know any better. He was a boy, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that made me tougher in a good way. And it
Right.
made me have a better sense of humor. And I think my brother and I always, my father, by the way, my real father, I learned, that's probably where I get this from, the love for writing and telling stories. My dad was,
Okay.
I didn't know this. I did see him when he passed away. I went to go see him. He at the Atlanta VA hospital. He ended up getting cancer
Okay.
from Agent Orange exposure in Vietnam. And I did.
Well,
My
my
kids never.
condolences to you.
Yes, I'm so glad I got to go see him, and he apologized to me. My sons never met him because they were too little, and since he was in
Okay.
like I think he was in ICU. They wouldn't allow children
Mm-hmm.
in there, so I was the only one, and my brother went separately, but he apologized to me, my father, and, but he also did help me though when I was, like I said, 19 or 20 when I didn't have a place to live, when my
Right.
mom and her husband at the time moved to California. So he apologized, told me how much he loved me. That meant the world. And
Right.
my brother went separately because you could only have one person in
Right.
it at the time. And I remember oh, by the way, I didn't mention my grandmother, his he was my real dad was an only child. My grandmother was brokenhearted because that was her only child, and he died before her.
Wow.
And I got to I spent a lot of time with her, by the way. And she was the one that helped my mother. I mentioned that speak English.
Yes, you did.
She was the one that took care of my mom, and then she was a back then. I think she had her own business at one point. She was a nurse at one point, but she was divorced twice too, right?
I see.
I think back then a lot of cheating going on, and that's what it was.
Well, it didn't get any better because people are
No,
divorcing 3, 4 times now.
yes. So
So,
through the second time, my grandma said that's enough, and I do have great memories of her, but she died, I think like she was 94, 95, so she lived a
oh,
long
she
time.
lived her life.
And she's always when she passed away, my brother and I went to the funeral, whatever, and we found a bunch of pictures we didn't know existed of us when we were kids. And my pictures were I was tiny, but we did, by the way, introduce our sons. My brother and I both have two
Hmm.
sons. We took our families to be with her, so
Okay,
our
that's good.
sons don't really remember, but we would visit her. And that's when my mom was traveling a lot overseas because she's married a military guy. So
Hmm.
this and he's special forces, so she traveled a lot. So we didn't. until they retired is when they got to see them more. And then in between all
Okay.
that, I had, weird cancer, and they think it was from, by the way, I was exposed to something being around these military bases when
I
I
see.
was a child. That's what they think.
Hmm. Did you get that taken care of?
It's all taken care of. We had because I'm curious, my curiosity has helped solve it because in the beginning they were like, and they were giving me pain medicine. And it turns out
Hmm.
I have a rare primary brain tumor that is caused by radiation exposure, which then put pressure. It's not, they call it a vestibular schwannoma. It's not considered cancer, but it could kill
Yeah, it
you.
could be. Yeah.
Yes, and what it did is put pressure on my pituitary, which ended up messing up with my hormones and gave me breast cancer twice. And so my decade of the 40s, it was always trying to put on a smiley face and give my sons hope, right?
Yeah.
They were young at the time. They were 8 and 11 when
And
the first,
how long from the time you discovered it to treatment?
the first time, I think we just treated it within 6 months the first time,
Okay.
but then I was having these weird things going on, and that's when 3 years later the brain tumor was discovered, and then that's when it was rare, and so like I said, I saw some doctors here in Atlanta, and no one knew what to do. So I did a lot of research. I asked a lot of questions. Like I said, be curious. And I
Right.
met up with a doctor in Chicago, had to find a doctor who knew about this. And so got
Right.
recommendations. So there was new technology at the time. So I have it's called CyberKnife. It was new at the time, where it's super
Hmm.
targeted radiation to kill it because surgery. I chose this neurosurgeon to monitor this because I trusted him. And
Hmm.
I asked him at the time, what would you do if this was your wife? And he says, I would not do surgery because I could have been paralyzed from the surgery.
I see.
So like, great. And so, excuse me, I had to, like I said, the hope, I have a shirt that's this hope, strength, faith, courage. And then I just needed to see those positive words and be positive with
Right.
my sons. And
Positive
it all,
affirmations.
yes. And then my husband, he to me is a major hero too. He had to help raise our sons and take care of his wife. And he mentioned that when we asked me to marry him, he wanted to take care of me. And
Right.
so maybe he knew, in the future, I'm going to need this. And
Right.
so then the breast cancer, after all the brain tumor craziness, we got that sort of under control. Breast cancer came back 4 or 5 years later,
Hmm.
because even though the brain tumor was sort of controlled, my hormones were still wacky because it affected my pituitary a little bit.
Pituitary gland. Hmm.
It messed it up. And that's what can cause breast cancer. So I became close with my OBGYN because she understood she had breast cancer at one point too.
Okay.
And they knew medicine wasn't going to help me. So she recommended a tetanus booster shot. What do you call it? You have to, when you get the reboost, I can't think of a booster shot. Yeah, whatever. And it's been used now being repurposed to kill brain tumors. That
Wow.
is what killed my brain tumor a year later, and that is what made my hormones normalized. Isn't that interesting?
The
So
tetanus booster shot.
yeah, so I'm going to get another one next year because it's been almost 10 years.
I think
Yeah,
it's supposed to be every 10 years, if I recall.
something like
Should
that.
be yeah.
But that's something I
I
got to
think I had it twice.
right.
And
I've
it
had
was
it
just because it wasn't
right,
for anything. It's they say in case you get stick by a nail or, something
right,
like
and
that.
that's what. And I never. She just thought, well, Bridget, she goes, let's just give you because she read about this. They're doing, and I trusted her because she was concerned because why am our hormones and the medicine they tried to give me to control. It's called the growth hormone and the prolactin hormone. Prolactin makes breast milk, and then the growth hormone can cause cancer to grow. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so we got it all in the normal levels. I met with great doctors. I joke that my social network are all the specialists, but they're better. They're happy that I was asking so many questions because they learned
Right.
too. And I think you've got to have empathy from every aspect of the
Yes.
situation. The doctors are like, One of them called me a zebra among horses because
Wow.
I did everything right, and all the stuff still happened to me. That's when we discovered that brain tumor
Right.
is
So this is, I'm glad you said that because a lot of times people think it's something that you're doing wrong that's causing these things to happen to
mhm,
you. You're eating right, you're exercising, you're doing everything, but things happen, exposures. You're being exposed, like you
yes,
said, as a kid growing up, you was exposed to things, meaning it was already in you. It just hadn't fully
right,
developed. So
right,
even if you're doing what's right, it was already there, and
right.
now it's starting to manifest itself.
And I listened to my body. Some people blow
That's
that
it.
off. I'm like, no, listen to your body and ask
Yes.
questions. There was a couple doctors I said bye to because they didn't like me asking questions. So I'm not,
Right.
they
But
need
you
to be
should.
open.
You should ask all the
Yes.
questions that have them have to start thinking. Find
Yes.
me an answer.
Right.
Challenge them, to
That's
help you.
that's why I found doctors who were into research, who understood
Yes.
it. Things happen, things change. And yeah, that's I'm so glad my an OBGYN, right? She learned about this because
Yes.
she was there. She gave birth. She helped me with my both my sons. And so we became close, right?
Right.
And I mean, we're not best friends or anything, but
Right.
someone that
You build a
she
relationship.
she has a really good reputation in Atlanta, and I really and same with my neurosurgeon, really great reputation, and that's why I trusted him when he
Right.
said, "No, I wouldn't do the surgery if it was my wife," because
Right.
some of
But
these
you
people
still you still went ahead and did it.
I didn't do surgery. I did the cyberknife, which was targeted radiation,
Okay. Okay.
but he has to
It's a
monitor.
procedure, not
Yeah, and it has to be monitored, meaning you still got to MRIs of my brain and to see it, and it did shrink. And he said if I ever did have to have surgery, because it's not 100%, he would just
right.
it's called debulking, which he couldn't remove everything
Right.
because it's stuck to nerves. That's what could cause paralysis. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Your brain is
Right.
only so big, and
Right.
I am so glad that I I'm glad I'm curious. And I was like, as a kid, the teachers always told my parents that I was always asking.
Hmm.
I was just very curious. That's
Right.
just how I wasn't as curious to do anything too dangerous, but that's just
Right.
kind of how I was. And I think
You
that's
wanted
good.
to find knowledge and how to apply what you have learned.
Mhm.
So, you've gone through all of these experiences. You went through all these changes in your life growing up as a child. You went through all these moves, experiences back and forth, all survival skills, trying to survive, making sure that everything is working. So, everything you explained today is the norms of life. You have to move in with people to get things right. You have to do this, everything. These are norms in life. And what you did was made the best of out of each of the situation. All right, because you could have allowed it to break you, you could have allowed it to keep you back. You understand, but because of your curiosity, because you wanting to know more, and there should be more, it pushed you further along. So, what advice would you give to someone, just by the experiences you've gone through, because you've gone through those experiences and now you had to tackle it in your own health, all right, and still did not stop your curiosity, still wanting to learn more because you were always pushing for more. That's what I would say. So people who stop and delay or wait, I think that's a detriment to you. It's always good to keep moving, right? Keep
Yes.
moving. So what advice would you give to someone?
I definitely would recommend you have someone, if you have a health issue, have someone with you when you go to these appointments. Uh, Take notes and record it, but also don't be afraid of research. And you find a support system too. There's a lot of
Hmm.
groups out there now that can support you, and also it's okay to pause a little bit and to reset your buttons at the right word. You got to pause sometimes and
Right.
reflect on what's going. Every situation is different, and reflect what's going on
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
try to before you react. Don't react. That's another thing,
Right.
because reacting is an impulse, and so I did pause. I didn't understand to pause and find the right people who have the right knowledge or those that support you who are curious too, who are going to be open
Mm-hmm.
to that. I think
Right.
that it's who you surround yourself with has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of and do affirmations that really helped me a lot.
Right. I love affirmations.
Yes,
Yes.
it helped me
I
because it
live for them. I share them. That's why I call my group We Were Women Inspiring Women Always is about positive affirmations
yes,
through word, through videos, so through somebody else's story, and say what an inspiration, because these are affirming positivity. So you need
yes.
to have a positive environment. That's the whole thing. Keep out of the toxic environment because it's not good for your health. Literally, it's not good for your health.
My mom sent me a funny joke one time about my angel is exhausted because she's been so busy.
You put them to work.
My angel's been working overtime, which is see, my mom
But
has a
that's what they're there for. You know, some
exactly
people's angels are just sitting on the couch, I think getting fat because they don't give them work to do. Hello,
right.
give them work to do.
My angel is in shape. She has been working hard, but I think you just got to embrace life. And I also learned focus on, we got so many things flying around. Focus on what's important, really.
Right.
And there's a lot of, I joke that my avatar, I'm a dog because I'm very interested in things. But before you like proceed, is this
Right.
important? Right? Does that make sense to
Yes.
you in life? And I've always I like adventures as well because
Hmm.
a lot of people like me who've had these health issues, we definitely appreciate, exploring new things
Right.
and, not traveling all over, but just, like, drive a different route home. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just
Change of
explore a little bit.
scenery. Change of
Right,
scenery
change
is
scenery.
that's
It
it.
helps a lot it helps your brain,
It
and
does.
because when you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're
Yes.
gonna forget. You're not looking at the details, right?
Yeah.
How's that? I think my curiosity helped me become grow my detail skill,
Right.
and
Right.
but at the same time have fun and make
Right.
sure it's
Explore
important to
new
you.
adventures and
Yes.
get out. This is what I say, get out more. Get
Yes.
out more. There's too much going in the community, even the community centers. Just go places, get out,
Right.
learn, meet new people. The whole key to a healthy lifestyle is really living,
Yes,
getting
living it.
out. Just live
Yes.
it. It's not meant to be stuck at home, or like you said, because they diagnose you, your reaction, it also determines the outcome. You understand?
Correct. You're right. That is I paused on it. I'm like, "Holy cow." And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell, the to me, the hardest thing was the brain tumor diagnosis because
Mm-hmm.
that was rare, and there's not a lot of, um, info on that, and so
Right.
but you know what? I forgot to mention this. I knew I was gonna be okay when we were at the gas station with our sons
Mm-hmm.
in the vehicle, and we haven't told our sons yet. I saw a rainbow over my neighborhood, right
Mm-hmm.
over in that, and I knew that was a sign. I saw that.
Right.
It's gonna
A
be okay, Bridget.
promise.
I had a literally, I'm like and I told my husband, I said, "Did you see that rainbow?" He goes, "Yes, I do." And so we just smiled at each other because we didn't want to say anything yet to the boys.
Right. Right. Right.
And we don't it was it was just interesting. I look for signs like that. And
Yes, I
that gives
always
you
do. Look for positive signs. Look for
yes,
messages.
right,
And that bring hope and say, okay, everything will be okay.
right. And
Everything will be okay.
the sign over my TV it says hope and it lights up. I want it to be a little brighter. So I don't
Right.
but I just need that. And some people
That's
find that
it.
like
That's it.
I don't care if it's cheesy, it helps me get through each day.
Whatever helps you. That's not,
Right.
toxic to your body or
No,
your
it's not
spirit.
except my need it's your spirit. My spirit
Yes.
is so happy to appreciate we gotta have gratitude for what we have. And I think
Right, definitely.
I think that's why
So,
it's good.
yeah. So we're gonna come to a close, but I do want to talk about your publishing, because there are people on here who from the beginning say, "Oh my gosh, she's a publisher," so they might want to know more about you, because we didn't talk about your publishing company, the name or connect. All the links will be in the bio because I will get all that information and it will be shared with the story here. But people like to also verbally hear it. So talk a little bit about that. How can they find you online on social media and reach out, and let's talk about the publishing aspect.
The company is called Gemini Media, and I made it up because I am a Gemini. And I started it after full time after while going through my last cancer treatment. I had clients who convinced me because I understand what's going on, but I didn't feel like I had value. But this provided value to me and
Right.
gave me some hope. So I started this company, Gemini Media, and my background is in, the publishing and production side. And I
Mm-hmm.
help most of the stuff I do with is I should say I'm not telling the stories, but to tell stories to make a difference, really.
Right.
And clients are like smaller publishers who need help but I
Right.
know all the connections and training companies and nonprofits. And one of
Right.
my nonprofits, a lot of it is helping children. I think we need to share more um, hope out there, and you can
Yes.
do it. People want to hear stories, and so I try
Yes.
to do it, helping to spread that hope, right? And
Yes.
wherever word, how you want to say it, but I always say faith too. Everybody has a different
Indeed.
perspective. And that's what it is. I can help you put it all together. And that's because that's my background. And because my detailed Brigitte comes out of me, that's just how I am.
That's
And
it. That's it. And it's
I,
needed because people need people like you to
mhm,
help them get where they need to go. They have the thought, they have the idea, but they don't know how
they're
to bring
afraid.
that all together. Because me, right now, I'm up to my eighth book that was published,
Mm,
and the experience and the journey, meeting different people. Sometimes I had to like say, no, I don't want this person. They don't get me, because you want to find someone that fits and understand your story and understand
right.
you as an individual, and you trust them with your work. You
Trust.
understand? So
That's what it
indeed.
was. I had the trust. And I have my main website is under I actually merged it together. It's under my name, BridgetteCutchell.com,
Mm-hmm,
but it
mm-hmm.
has a Gemini Media logo on there. And
Okay.
everybody thinks it's kind of funny that I'm a Gemini, but the best place to also find me is my website and also LinkedIn, just Brigitte Cutchall. And
Okay.
there's a page on there, but I don't put most on the Gemini page. It's mostly about me.
Okay.
It's related to your brand. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I am
Yes.
Gemini. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
that's what was recommended to me. And by the
Right.
way, guys, my background's publishing, but I didn't publish my first book until after the last cancer because I'm like,
Wow.
time is short. You're only here so
That's what
much.
I was thinking. I was like, you have
I
a story to tell, and I was saying you definitely,
I
should
I
tell the
waited,
story.
and I waited to the like, why am I waiting? And it was just even though I'm very positive and help other people, a lot of us, we have problems. That's why you need help. We hold
That's
ourselves
it.
back as well. You need a support team. And I
That's
had
it.
people telling me, write your own book, and I had clients tell me, start your own business. And I'm
That's
still
it.
here, pushing away 10 years later.
That's
Shouldn't say
good,
pushing,
definitely. So we
helping.
definitely will be in touch. I will definitely be in touch with you
Okay.
because actually, even though I wrote my first book, and I have a book that's been in me for at least 15 years, that is more like a spiritual book. But I said to the Lord, I need to tell my story first. I want to put my story out there. And even though it was not initially meant for the world, it was just for me to write my story and leave it as a memoir for my children.
Right.
But then I realized when I share stories and other people are being blessed by it and they finding me relatable, and I'm not gonna lie, once I wrote my book, so much it opened so much doors, to me and access that people now feel, yes, I can come to you to mentor me or coach me because
Right.
I was there. You understand me. You understand me? And I find you relatable. So these are good. So this is why platforms like Emerge and Empower and Gemini Media are here so that you can come on and tell your story. And you have a great support system to help you see it through. All right. So I want
Right.
to thank you once again, Bridget, for coming on to Emerge and Empower. And definitely, this has been a very insightful episode. And everyone, we do thank you for watching and continue to share the story. And you will have the link in the bio so that you'll be able to reach out to Bridget for her services. All right, because again, we go through experiences and then we have things that why do we do this? Why did I write? She tell you it came about in her after her second diagnosis, and now she's realizing, you know what, I have a story to tell. There's more that needs to be
Right.
done. And just started everyone with a purpose in our lives. All right. So I'm going to
Right.
close off with a prayer. Father God, I thank you on today for your presence. I thank you for Bridget's story as you'll continue to heal her body, mind, and spirit. And all the individuals that are watching on today that are probably being diagnosed right now, that they can know their reaction. Heavenly Father, Lord, also determines the outcome. So let them keep themselves in a positive environment and knowing that healing is indeed there for them. So, Father, we thank you for everyone. We thank you for Bridget and her family. And also, there might be an individual right now whose parents are going to divorce, or maybe it's the parent that's going to divorce right now. Because I hear so many stories. Just the other day, a young man who's going to divorce is very hard, it's very difficult. But Father, I ask, Heavenly Father, Lord, that you can help them through this storm, Heavenly Father, Lord, and let it not be a detriment to their spirit. Let it not be a detriment to their soul, Heavenly Father, Lord, so that they can get up, revived, and renewed from it instead of broken and continue creating damage. So, Father God, we ask for your healing, not only today, but forever. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Bridget, for coming on. And we will be staying in touch with her. And everyone, do reach out. And this is on LinkedIn. So if you're watching on LinkedIn and she gave her name, so she should be able to click that link, ring from LinkedIn, and be
Right.
able to see her. Thank you so much, Bridget, for being on Emerge and Empower.
Thank you so much. This was beautiful.
Bye,
It enlightened.
everyone.
Something good gonna happen in this year.